Can you hear me now? Nothing like turning on a microphone. Can you hear me now? Nothing like turning on a microphone. Can you hear me now? Okay. Nothing like turning on a microphone. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to ONYX Pages. It isn't Jerry. I am live. And I am going to be giving you a wrap up of the books that I've read so far in 2024. I have not set any numerical reading goals. The purpose of my reading in 2024 is just to kind of stay on task, read with purpose, reconnect with the joys of reading, um, augment the 7 calorie shell uh, response system, and also just be in reading community. So that's what I've been trying to do. And so I thought what I would do is give you a wrap up of the books that I've read so far in quarter 1. This is not going to consist of any reviews, and I have not, thanks for the heart. I have not made any formal reviews yet, but one of my commitments is to provide formal calorie shell reviews of all the books that I have read. But in no specific order, actually, that's a lie. In order that I've read them, I'm going to talk about what I have read and how I felt about them. Okay. So I started off the year really excited to be reading in community because Kiki, who is over at If This Is Paradise on Instagram, has been facilitating this Cadwell Turnbull read along. And I have the lesson, which I thought was right here, but I think it's over there. Yes. I have the lesson by Cadwell Turnbull and have not read it. And then when I heard about his next novel, No Gods, No Monsters, I got really excited because my friend LP told me about it. And I thought, okay, I trust LP's views on everything. So I thought, okay, let me read that one. And I believe he actually gifted me No Gods, No Monsters. And so it's like, okay, let me read that one. Never really read it. And then when I found out that Kiki was doing this read along, I thought this is a great opportunity to get into reading again and to read a writer who I was really excited to read and to do that in community. So the Cadwell Turnbull read along was a wonderful experience. So Kiki set out a reading structure and schedule, and it was a very good pace. It was a slow reading pace, which is perfect for me as a slow reader. And we would comment on the excerpts that we read every sort of Saturday. And then it culminated in a live show with Cadwell Turnbull. I was unable to go to the live show. I was working. But also I realized that I had developed such a strong relationship with the story that I actually didn't want to hear. I didn't want to hear his views yet. I wanted to wait until I finished the series before hearing him talk about it, because I actually developed a very intense connection with what I'd read and an attachment to my own perspective. So the books were No Gods, No Monsters. So I didn't read this along with the read along. The read along had already finished No Gods, No Monsters. What the read along was reading, they were reading We Are the Crisis, which is the sequel to No Gods, No Monsters. But in order to read this, I had to read this. So I started off the year reading this. I'm going to read the synopsis, and then I will give you just an overview of my general thoughts. This is not a 7 calorie. It'll never be a 6 calorie. One October morning, Lena gets the news that her brother has been shot and killed by Boston cops. But what looks like a case of police brutality soon reveals something much stranger. Monsters are real, and they want everyone to know it. As creatures from myth and legend come out of the shadows, seeking safety through visibility, the emergence sets off a chain of seemingly unrelated events. Members of a local werewolf pack are threatened into silence. A professor follows a missing friend's trail of breadcrumbs to a mysterious secret society. And a young boy with unique abilities seeks refuge in a pro monster organization with secrets of its own. Meanwhile, more people start disappearing, suicides and hate crimes increase, and protests erupt globally, both for and against the monsters. At the center is a mystery no one thinks to ask. Why now? What has frightened the monsters out of the dark? The world will soon find out. Um, I loved No Gods, No Monsters. I loved it. It was there was so much in the world building. So it's told in a non-linear way in terms of time. There is it's weird because even to describe the world building is to give spoilers. What I will say is that the world building is disorienting. It is textured. So we have lots of different fantastical beings and energies interacting. Some beings that you wouldn't expect to meet up or encounter each other or interact with each other in this world. It's dark. It's a dark world, um, and it's kind of it's interesting because as the synopsis sets out, you have this horrible, horrific act of police brutality. We have protests and uprisings, but then we also have this sort of emergence of mystical beings, right? Monstrosities. Um, and then, we have humans doing what humans do in response to othering and other people. Um, and then there's like the cool thing about reading with the group was that there were a lot of folks in the group who had everybody had read the lesson already, and apparently there are Easter eggs from the lesson in this world of No Gods, No Monsters, and so folks were tracing, um, making correspondences between the world building in the previous book and in this one, in the MonsterVerse. Um, I loved the characters. I loved the magic. I loved. I love Cadwell Turnbull's writing. It's absolutely stunning and arresting. Um, and I was joyfully confused for a lot of the book. I was okay with that. Um, Sometimes when you read a book, and the only person I think I've experienced this with Dr. Karen Lord's books, as well as is it P. Jelly Clark? I want to say yeah, as well as P. Jelly Clark's books, and Kaya Shanti Wilson as well. I'll say, and to a certain extent N.K. Jemisin, but not so much. But sometimes when you're reading, um, you really have to kind of hold on to the narrative until you understand it. And for some people have a really high tolerance for not understanding what they're reading, and they can hold on in that place of not understanding for quite some time before everything comes back together. Um, and I think for me, um, I wasn't required to hold on for that long, but the moments that I found myself being like, "Oh my gosh, this is really hard to understand," or "I'm not sure, um, I'm not sure what's going on." Like just when I was like, this is a little bit too much," I would get an answer, or I would be intrigued by something else and go into that sort of other place. I actually think there's another book that I read this year, but I'm not. I'll have to go back. I thought I read Micaiah Johnson's book, but we'll talk about that. So I read No Gods, No Monsters, and I really enjoyed it. That was followed by We Are the Crisis. I also enjoyed this one. Um, Obviously, second book in a series, we have more maturity in the characters. There's a lot more doors that are opened, a lot more explanations that we are getting in the second book, but it doesn't wrap everything up. And in fact, it ended with this like whole other direction. Um, and I loved it. I love both books. I'm very excited about the third. I am worried that I'm going to forget the plot and the details of the books, and that when the third book comes out, I'm going to have to read the first two books, which is I struggle with series for that reason. I usually wait until the entire series is out now so that I can read everything all together. But I wanted to read with the read along. So that is what I that's those were the first two books I believe that I read this year. Um, and they were both great books. I would recommend them. I would recommend these books if you're interested if you like um, complex, disorienting world building, if you're interested um, in political world building as well, like if you're interested in society's revolution, change, how all of that connects to fantasy. Like if that's something that's interesting to you. Um, I love that there is a really interesting, I'm saying interesting a lot, but I love that there's an interplay between just the mundane world, like the everyday world of people living their lives, and then also monsters of all different kinds just sort of interacting. Just really cool. So that's that. Um, the next book that I read, so I think what I did after that was I feel like I'm missing one. Um, so after that, I had hello, RC. Nice to see you. Hi, Tati. Thank you for coming. And hi, Tomi, who's also right there. Um, so the next book that I read, so I asked folks, what would you recommend that I read? And I had two options. I had Womb City and The Dazzling, and you all chose Womb City, and so that was the next book that I read, Womb City. I actually liked asking for your guidance because sometimes, especially if you have a sizable collection of books, it can be overwhelming to choose what you're going to read next and kind of like anxiety raising. So low key anxiety. And so I was just like, let me just ask you guys, what do you suggest? And the overwhelming response was Womb City. So, Womb City, I would say overall, I'm glad I read the book and I'm glad I stuck with it. Um, I have watched many reviews of Womb City, and um, I find that from what I've seen, the reviews are fairly mixed. So some people really, 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 really loved it, and some people DNF'd it because they just couldn't. They just couldn't with everything that was going on. And I'll share a few of my thoughts about the book, but first I'll just read the synopsis. Um, an adrenaline packed cyberpunk body hopping African futurist ghost story exploring motherhood, memory, and a woman's right to her own body. So that, like, we're given a lot of information about like what this is right off the bat. Nayla seems to have it all: fame, wealth, and a long awaited daughter growing in a government lab. But trapped in a loveless marriage and monitored by a microchip, her perfect life is precarious. After an eerie car accident, Nayla commits a desperate crime and buries the body, daring to hope that she can keep one last secret. The truth claws its way into Nayla's life from the grave. As the ghost of her victim hunts down the people Nayla holds dear, Nayla must unravel the political conspiracy her victim was on the verge of exposing, or risk losing everyone. In this nail-biting debut, acclaimed short fiction writer Tlotut Samaaze brings searing intelligence and Botswana's cultural sensibility to the devastatingly timely question, how far must a woman go to bring the whole system crashing down? Okay, so I struggled with this book. I enjoyed the premise. I the first 100 pages of this book, I was into it. I was committed. I thought it was a story of a woman's struggling marriage and struggling fertility and living in this like cyberpunk patriarchal society, and I was into it. I was into all of that. And then it changed suddenly into something else. And I was shocked by the change in the pace of the story, uh, and the turn of events and the characters that we were seeing more of. Like there was one character that we spent a lot of time with in the first 100 pages, and then that character just like receded into the background. And then we had this other character who was interacting with the main character. Hi, Bree, she rereads. Um, and so I'm like, okay, so we have this. Okay, now we have this like other person involved. Okay, cool. And then there's like a lot of a lot of interaction between those two characters. And I was like, okay, I'm into it. We switch gears. I can I can deal with what we're hearing. And then like shift, flex. Now we have a whole other story. And of course the backdrop of the story, sort of stayed the same, but it was like it was flipping channels, right? It went from this like speculative, futuristic, like techno patriarchy to this like hot, gritty mystery, crime, romance, fast paced thing. And then it flipped again. And now, in the third, not even the third act, but sort of in the last third of the book, we start to see the building out of this kind of other spiritual, fantastical, dark world. And I was just like, I don't know what exactly I'm experiencing or what I'm supposed to be experiencing. And the end of the book and everything coming together um, felt really rushed, and it felt like a lot of information. And I thought, I really I would have been fine with less chapters in the beginning just so that I could get more chapters in the end. So I struggled with the pacing of the story. I struggled with the what appeared to be um, like odd choices around the development of the characters. Um, yeah, I struggled with that, and then I also found myself wanting more of the lore, um, more of the folklore that informed this story that we got sort of a lot of right toward the end, right? So at the same time, so while there were some frailties in the way the story was told, and actually, let me talk about that because I can put this down now. I'm talking about Womb City, okay? So that's the book. Maybe I'll put it behind there. Okay. Um, so am I going which way? This. So um, I thought about a couple of things while I read the book. So the first was, what are my expectations when I read? What is a good story? What is a story well told? What is a good story well told? Um, and is this a good story? And the answer to that question is yes. It's a it's a good story. It was a wild ride. Um, and it pulled in a lot of different elements. And I think that for me, because I had spent so much time in No Gods, No Monsters and We Are the Crisis, coming to Womb City and getting a very different style of world building and storytelling and a different pacing of the plot was just different. This was much faster, much more. heavy hitting than Turnbull's work, and I probably should have had a palette, like a genre palette cleanser in between. Um, so yeah, that's how I felt about Womb City. I would recommend it. What I would say though is commit to the experience of it, because if you're somebody who struggles with like a swift change of pace or change of style or change of focus, and if you're lost in those moments, it might be difficult to stay connected to the story. Um, but that was Womb City, so that was the next book that I read, and I'm glad that I read it. So after having read that, I was like, okay, well, that was an experience. I need a palate cleanser. So what does that mean? Um, Sometimes when I have read uh, one style of speculative fiction, one subgenre, or one length of book, I need to go to something very, very different just to shake myself out of what I had just read and to get me sort of alert again. And so I decided to read a novella, and I read Loving Safwa. This is a novella that I was sent by the author, Liza Wemakwar. You would have seen an unboxing of this on my channel a couple of weeks ago. And it was published by Neon Hemlock. And um, I was really excited about this book, and I was so happy to receive it, because I love vampire stories, and I had a feeling that this story would have been influenced by um, Octavia Butler's Shori in Fledgling, and the vampires that we saw in Jewel Gomez's The Gilda Stories. So there, so again, Loving Safwa. I'm going to put it over here. Um, I enjoyed that novella. Um, just some high levels. So we're following the two characters on the cover. It's Safwa and also, is it Cynthia? Who? What? I have a heart. Yes, Cynthia. Cynthia. So it says here, when school teacher Cynthia gets a tattoo at a block party in 1991 Flatbush, she doesn't realize she's embarking on a life-changing romance with an immortal Ghanaian vampire. Join Cynthia and Safwa on an affair that defies genre, weaving together stories from 19th century West Africa, late 20th century New York, and near future rural Maryland. So if you've read the Gilda Stories, and I think if you watch my review of the Gilda Stories from many years ago, I think I said this, and I've also interviewed Jewel Gomez, and that is also on the channel as well. And one of the things that I love about vampire stories, is that because vampires are immortal, or near immortal, there any story about vampires is going to be historical fiction, right? Any story that has to do with vampires will span centuries, and the author will have license to meaningfully and logically take you through societal change, over long swaths of time, into the future, way into the past. And it all makes sense because you've got this creature who can live almost forever. Um, and so in Jewel Gomez's The Gilda Stories, the chapters might be decades apart, centuries apart. They start in the 90s, they go in like 2025, 28, 2032, right? And so we have Jewel Gomez thinking about the future at that time, and telling stories about how the communities that these vampires are living in are changing over decades and centuries, right? And of course, if you can live for almost ever, then you have to leave places and come back to those places lest people realize that you're not aging. Um, so in this world, it's a world over that spans decades, centuries. But in these worlds, vampires are known to people. People know that they exist, but they're not necessarily um, able to be free and transparent in their lives. And because we have this story that involves two women loving each other, we obviously get to explore um, queer love, love between women, love between sisters, friends, and also communities of Black queer folks in the U.S., also in Ghana, and I enjoyed that. There were some very sexy moments, and I was into it. I was into them. I love them. They came out of nowhere sometimes, and I was like, okay, okay, here we are, liquids. Okay. And so it was fun, for a short book, sort of jumping all over the place because vampires get to do that. I just enjoyed it. I wish that it was longer, and I hope that we're going to see more from Liza in this world. But it was like literary candy, and it was lovely to read. And it picked up on themes like community, because of course, whenever you're reading about Black vampires, you will inevitably read about communities and enclaves and things like that. And so I really enjoyed that. Hi, Malian and the Sapphire. Hello. So loving Safwa was great. Um, so then, um, and also throughout, I have also been reading Writing Speculative Fiction, Creative and Critical Approaches by Eugen Bacon. And this is a nonfiction craft book written by Eugen Bacon, who has written a billion things. I don't know how she does it, but I think she had like 14 books last year that just came out. She's just such a prolific, interesting experimental writer. And she's got like the best voice in the world. um, anyway, so she wrote this book on writing speculative fiction, and I am reading it slowly and trying to do the exercises. And so I'll take up a chapter sort of in between each book that I'm reading. I'll read it on my commute. And reading books about writing helps me in a lot of different ways. It's right now really helping me to articulate different elements in my cowrie shell review system. Okay, so that's what I've read for the beginning of the year. What I am currently reading, which I'll just mention briefly, I'm just trying to think of where it is. Can you pass me the book in the bag, please? Or the bag? Yeah, thank you. So right now, thanks, Ivy. Thank you. Right now, I am reading River Mama. I am hybrid reading this, and I should say that I hybrid read everything except for Loving Sappho, I think. Um, but I'm hybrid reading this as well, River Mama, by Zalika Reed Benta. And um, so this book is set in Toronto, and I'm just in the first maybe 100 pages of it, I want to say. Yeah, probably 100 pages of it. And it's only 230 pages. So it's probably going to be done by Monday, maybe even earlier. Um, it's set in Toronto. So there are references to stores, restaurants, streets. Even the river that River Mama is in is a river that is right over there. And as somebody from Toronto, it's very unusual to get the opportunity to read about places that are around you. The only time I have gotten this experience has been Nalo Hopkinson, and then now uh, Lizelle Sambury, who's also from Toronto. We're starting to get stories that are local, and that's really nice because growing up in Canada, like I don't not used to people writing about this place. Um, it's usually like New York, Chicago, or like anywhere in the U.S. So we'll see how it goes. So far, it's interesting. I find myself smiling and smirking because the main character is in her early 20s, and I was born in a decade, so I was that once. Um, and we are nothing alike, and it's just really nice being inside this young woman's head as she figures stuff out. So I think that is it. Um, so, my friends, thank you very much for watching. If you are in the chat right now and if you are watching, I would love to know what you are currently reading, if you want to put that in the chat. And then also, if you are if you're watching this in the replay, thank you very much for doing that. In the comments, please let me know two things. One, have you read any of the books that I've talked about? If so, what did you think? And then, second, palette cleansers. Do you have them? Do you use them? Do you try to switch it up a little bit when you find that you've read a lot of books in the same genre or same world, same topic? Do you find that it's necessary to kind of go somewhere else before you come back to sort of, you know, neutralize your palette, your reading palette? Let me know. Or do you like deep dive? So, what's that about for you? Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I want to stay on for a few seconds and read some of the comments. But remember always to read with purpose. I hope that you have enjoyed your time. Oh, a couple of announcements. There is a winner. There are winners for my contest, and I'm just getting my ideas together for the announcement video. So that is something that's going to happen. So thank you to everybody who participated in the contest, guessing the 7 calorie shell themes for the 4.0 rating system. So thank you for that. And once I finish River Mama, I will read the other book that folks chose, which was The Dazzling. So in my Q2 review, I hope to have at least 5 books to fully talk about. I've read 5 so far. So is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. I feel like I'm missing one. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Okay, let's see what people are saying, and then I'm gonna go. You're welcome. So, Mara, you're reading the kids' book of Black history in Canada. It's really interesting. Oh, cool. Okay, I haven't heard of that, so I'll take a look at that. You are starting a Kennedy Ryan book, Long Shot. Cool. I don't know Kennedy Ryan, and I don't know anything about that book, so that's cool. I hope that you enjoy it. You're welcome, Tommy. You're reading Thick. I haven't heard about that either. Okay, so Bree, you absolutely switch genre just to switch it up, especially for high fantasy. Like it's seriously, like sometimes you got to shake yourself out of the world. I remember when I was reading Lord of the Rings, like I read The Hobbit and then I read Lord of the Rings, and I was just like, I think I went straight to self-help after that for like a good several months because I just needed Tolkien out of my head for so many reasons. But yeah, it can be helpful to switch it up and then come back. And sometimes I'll choose to read short stories just to like knock my brain around a little bit to go from one world to another in like short succession before going into a tome, or I'll do a novella in between 2 longer works. So hi. um, you're reading Sula. You know, RC, I haven't read Sula. I tried and I couldn't. I need to. I need to read more of Morrison's work. It's speculative, and I just need to read it. You know what I thought I'd read? But maybe I read The Color Purple, and that was I thought I read it earlier this year, but maybe I didn't. I could have sworn that I read that book like in January. I'm pretty sure. Didn't I read The Color Purple in January?
You went to the movie.
No, but I went to the movie, but then
I also did before.
Oh, the movie, I read it in December because it came out Christmas.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it was good. You try to read a nonfiction book when you need a break from fantasy. I get it. And you read some poetry this month. Awesome. Okay, everyone, we are almost 40 minutes in, so I am going to say see you later. Thanks for joining. Thank you for watching. If you like these live videos, let me know, and I will try to do them. Maybe I'll do my wrap-ups as lives, and that can be something I can commit to. Okay, I feel you, RC. Thanks for the hearts, everyone. All right, read with purpose. Have a great day, life. See you soon. Bye.